Hello, everybody. Once again, sports fans, it is an edition of the DC Sports Huddle, and Dave Johnson is on vacation, so I am pinch hitting as the host. I'm Rob Woodfork, alongside the usual cast of characters, Chris Cichon, Dave Preston, and of course, George Wallace, who has been at Washington football practice pretty much throughout the preseason or throughout the training camp, and we're about to start the preseason. And George, you've seen practices. You've been down to Richmond. What should we look for when they kick off the preseason on Thursday in New England?
Well, keep in mind we didn't have the preseason last year, so it's going to be a little bit different this year. And coaches are kind of looking forward to it because
and also only 3 games as opposed to 4.
That's true. And coaches and players saying they still hate the preseason, but it's still a chance to kind of. Consistency was the big word that players and coaches were throwing around this week. You want to, number one, get out of there without any injuries. That's first and foremost. You don't want anybody to get injured. And then consistency for quarterbacks. It's getting in and out of the huddle, the cadence, the rhythm, the timing. For the rookies, it's putting on the uniform for the first time and kind of bright lights for the first time, seeing how they handle things. With this first preseason game, there's no game planning for the first preseason game. It's kind of going out and doing your things. And see what you've been working on the previous 2 weeks, see how that translates to in the game on the field. The next couple of weeks, as Ron Rivera told us this morning, even that third week against the Ravens is going to be more of a mock game week. Now, there are only 3 preseason games, but that third game, after that third game, they'll still have 10 days before the opener. So I think the teams will treat that game like a normal third game where you see teams, players playing a half, maybe a series into the third quarter, as there was some thought maybe, with 3 games, would they use the second game for that? So I think a lot of that's still up in the air and coaches are still trying to figure that out. But it sounds like this team is going to use that third game as a typical third game, a mock game week. So for this week, you kind of just want to see, how things have gone the first couple of weeks. You don't want a couple 3 and outs on offense. On defense, you love the 3 and outs. So it's kind of see how you look at it on both sides of the ball. But I'm curious to see how, Ryan Fitzpatrick comes out, leads this offense for the first time, how this defense gets going in their couple of series against New England. William Jackson III, the new cornerback, I don't expect him to play. He's been nursing that leg injury. I'm anxious to see him actually on the field. But, we'll see Landon Collins back for the first time since tearing his ACL. On the defensive side, of course, the front 7, I should say, you're not going to see Ryan Kerrigan this year for the first time. So things like that, just to kind of see things sprinkled in here and there, get their first couple of series, get in, get out, however long they play. And more importantly, injury-free, stay upright.
That's right. And the offensive line, I've been saying it all off season. I want to see how this offensive line performs. Are they able to open some holes for the running game? Are they able to protect Ryan Fitzpatrick? Because if Fitzpatrick is on his back the whole first quarter, then we don't get to see the timing with the receivers or any of that. What about you, Dave? What are you looking for in this preseason game?
Couple things. First, I'm looking to see how the quarterbacks embrace the system. Fitzpatrick, even though he's a veteran, he's technically going to a new offense this year. We know he's going to pick it up. He went to Harvard, so he's not a dummy by any stretch of the imagination. But let's see how quickly he's able to really absorb the offense in game situations. Also, the other quarterbacks on the roster, who will be QB2 and QB3 moving forward. Not to, I guess, maybe think that Steven Montez isn't going to make this roster, but let's see what everybody has to offer over these 3 games. Also, who's on the roster bubble? I think USA Today earlier this summer thought Steven Sims Jr., John Bostic, Wes Martin were guys who might find their way off the roster or might actually become contributing factors to this team. Let's see where they are, because training camp, for the most part who your starting 11 are, give or take. If a guy starts off training camp as a starter and winds up not starting, he still is probably in the rotation if he's not hurt. But who are players number 40 to 53? Who are the special teamers? Who are the rookies who might surprise us? I'm curious to see that.
Yeah, and they are stacked. I mean, quietly, they are stacked at wide receiver. I mean, where is Antonio Gandy Golden ranked in the? I mean, what is he, like the 7th receiver? And he was a 4th round pick last year. that
Yeah.
a lot of fans had some high hopes for. What are you looking for, Chris?
And what about Kelvin Harmon? I mean, he's somebody
Yeah.
when he got drafted, everybody was high on. And they added Curtis Samuel to this group, who can be the Swiss Army knife, play the running back or wide receiver role. But looking for a couple of things here. Jamin Davis, will he play very many snaps here? And we hear so much about the front seven, right? Pro Football Focus ranked this secondary number 11 in the NFL. I thought that was pretty generous, but did do some digging up on William Jackson. He does play really strong in man coverage, and I think the trio there in the secondary, at least at corner, it's a strong unit, and I really want to just see them, though. How much are they going to really play? Are we going to see more of the rookies on the back end? And also the quarterback play too. I mean, are we going to really see Taylor Heineke play very many snaps? I don't see Fitzpatrick playing a whole lot, maybe a drive or two. I think Heineke might get a little bit of a bulk.
He will, because Kyle Allen still hasn't practiced in a while. He's not going to play. You may see Montez for at least a quarter. He's been playing. He's getting all the third string reps in practice the last couple of weeks, because Allen's still day to day with that ankle, so he's not going to play. He won't play Thursday.
It kind of feels like he's trending in a direction of getting stashed away on injured reserve to start the season. Is that what it feels like to you, George?
As far as Kyle Allen, yeah, I mean, He said, the coach keeps saying he's very anxious to get him back. He says he's close. We see him working on the side, but he's running, he's sprinting.
Yeah.
So it seems like it's close,
Mhm.
but who knows? I mean, you keep talking about the quarterback. It's not a competition. It is a competition, but it's not.
Right.
And he says when Allen gets back, he'll be thrown into the mix. I don't buy that unless, I think something's going to have to really go wrong with Fitzpatrick for him not to be starting in week one. But
yeah, I mean, it's his job to lose. I don't think you pay somebody $10 million to be backup. Unless you're Oakland, but or Las Vegas rather. I'm still living in the past. Apparently, I haven't slipped and called Washington its old name yet. So I guess we're winning in that respect. But under the old name, they had some preseason superstars, as I like to call them. Every year, there's somebody that fans fall in love with and think is going to be the next big thing. And because Tom Brady was taken in the 6th round, there was several years ago, actually now more than a decade ago, I'm starting to get old. It was Colt Brennan, the 2008 6th round pick, who everybody fell in love with. And I don't know how much you guys remember that, but that 2008 preseason, I mean, he was pretty legit. He lit it up in the Hall of Fame game. He ended up being the top rated passer among rookies in the preseason, but he never, ever got into a regular season game between injury and opportunity. And he had some off the field problems, and he actually tragically passed away earlier this year. But that was a guy that everybody was convinced in Washington was going to be the next Tom Brady. Didn't work out that way, but there's always somebody that we believe is going to be the next great thing. Chris, is there any guy that you think of off the top of your head from preseasons past?
11 years ago, Donovan McNabb, he did go out there against the Buffalo Bills, do 2 series, threw a touchdown pass, and then ended up getting hurt somewhere along the line in the preseason and wasn't playing. Whether that was serious or not, or precautionary, remains to be found out. But I just think this is a guy that, and I know that he certainly failed all of those lofty expectations that at that point of his career, they probably set him up to fail more so than anything. I mean, not investing in a line in front of him when you paid Hainsworth. So, but I do remember the excitement about McNabb getting traded to Washington and the prospect of him leading this offense.
I mean, he was supposed to be a perfect fit for the Shanahan offense. I mean, I'm still trying to figure out how in the world that didn't work out, because on paper, that should have worked out famously. And I remember they beat the Eagles in the first game, lost that second one badly after he got the contract extension. But the Monday Night Massacre, I mean, I'm still paying off that bet. But the first game they ended up winning, but he didn't play well. Like he completed less than half of his passes. Like it was a disaster. But George, is there a guy actually, and I'm thinking of this now, is there a guy that is a preseason superstar right now? Is there a guy who's standing out in camp who may or may not make the roster?
I don't know. I don't think right now, honestly. I mean, I think you have to see it in games because there's been so few kind of reps right now in practice. I mean, I couldn't really give you anybody now that, that as far as a new guy that would Cam, the Cam Sims of the preseasons past, like he's a guy that has been stood. I mean, I think he's firmly on this roster, I think, but,
Wow.
Oh yeah, I think so. I do.
So I mean, they're probably going to keep what, 7 receivers?
It's
going
to be
about
interesting
70.
because Sims, like Steven Sims, you're talking about whoever mentioned before being on the bubble, but if he's returning punts, I mean, I think he's kind of be locked in. You got De'Ami Brown, you got him, you got Gandy Golden. It's going to be an interesting thing at wide receiver for sure. But how about in the past? Can we go in the past? You ready for that? I'll give you two names.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know what Dave Preston's going to take with his names.
I mean, he's got a whole list, so I feel like you're safe.
I'll give you two. You got Marcus Mason.
Yeah.
Marcus Mason, the running back.
Yep.
07. And then Marco Mitchell, number 84, the wide receiver.
That was going to be my bonus right there if nobody else said it. Marco Mitchell never played a snap in the regular season, but everybody was convinced. He's 6'4", ran a 4.4 40. Everybody was convinced he was going to be Randy Moss 2.0. Didn't really happen in games that actually mattered. All right, Dave, I know you're chomping at the bit here, man. This is right up your alley, and you have a full-on list because Dave Preston.
Well, a couple years ago for WTOP.com, the Burgundy and Gold Grab Bag, I actually created this award called the Babe Laufenberg Trophy. He is the ultimate Washington football preseason giant. He actually, I think, won a Super Bowl ring with the Cowboys. He's now a TV guy in Dallas and is their color analyst, I believe, on radio still. But he's a guy who made his preseason name for the Burgundy and Gold back in the day. And Bobby Beathard said, gosh darn it, it's a shame that we can't keep a guy like him on the roster, but we're not keeping him on the roster. So I've named the trophy after him. And a few years ago, I did a deep dive into preseason stars just in the Jay Gruden era. So get ready to be wowed or underwhelmed. 2014, Colt McCoy completes 73% of his passes, 111.6 passer rating. He almost won the award again in 2017. That was won by Josh Harvey Clemens. 15 tackles plus an INT return for a touchdown. 2015 wide receiver Rashad Ross, 25 catches for 266 yards and 4 scores, although linebacker Jackson Jeffcoat notched 4 sacks, a fumble recovery, and an interception. We take you back to 2016 now. Do you guys remember Mac Brown, not the North Carolina coach, but the running back? 39 carries, 227 yards, looking like Larry Brown, wound up not playing much
not being
at
Larry
all,
Brown.
Played like Larry Brown, the basketball coach.
2018, we had running back Capri Bibbs, 106 yards rushing, 119 yards receiving, although linebacker Sean Dion Hamilton finished a close second with 26 tackles that year. Of course, this is subjective and 100% accurate. 2019, the last year under Jay Gruden, Jimmy Moreland was the early guy. Jeremy Reeves wound up leading the team in tackles. He gets the Babe Laufenberg Trophy for 2019. We didn't have one last year. I look forward to seeing who might claim it this year. I wouldn't be surprised to see a guy like J.D. McKissick, just because he's going to get a lot of touches offensively. I wouldn't be surprised to see him put up big numbers. I'm not saying that we're all going to get excited about him, but after the 3 preseason games, we'll be like, wow, he did this. Pretty impressive.
No, I think
I looked it up. I just had to look it up because I couldn't remember the name. Samaje Perine is who Jay Gruden loved him. I'll never forget. I asked him in Richmond a couple years ago about who was it? I can't remember who it was, but then he snaps like, don't forget about Perine, like the guy that just loved to get his name out there. He liked Capri Bibbs too.
Yeah, he did. And I think the guy to watch now in that same vein is Jarrett Patterson, the
Jarrett Patterson,
right?
Yeah,
So I mean,
that's what I was going to say too. Yeah.
Is there? I mean, if he has a big preseason, I mean, that gives him an opportunity to maybe make the roster.
And he's actually caught some eyes, I think, in practice. I've noticed him a couple of times. Mentioned his name a couple of times when he's had some things. Deandre Carter too. He's had a few, plays here and there. So we'll see. There's going to be somebody that's going to come out of it and win the award.
And Deandre Carter is he's going to be getting the first crack at return man, isn't he?
Probably.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's a guy who could make the roster just off special teams right there. Because, I mean, you figure your last two receivers have to be able to play special teams. So.
And, I mean, remember when, even a couple of years ago, Steven Sims was returning punts. He asked Jay Gruden why. He goes, well, he's the only one that can catch the ball. So that's where we were at that point. If you can catch it back there, you can return.
Yeah, but he's not been good back
No.
I think
Trey Quinn.
Many things have gone wrong if he's their starting return man this season.
And gentlemen, I think one more thing, about what we're looking for this preseason. Much like preseasons past under the previous coaching regime, it felt like the team was sleepwalking through August, Camp J or whatever, and they always seem to be very sluggish in September. I think that's one of the first things we saw last fall when they came out and played so well in the second half of that win over Philadelphia to start the season and get them rolling. I'm looking forward to seeing how crisp this team is, because I think they might not go 3-0 like the 2013 team went 4-0 and may have a preseason banner somewhere in Bruce Allen's house. But I think we're going to see a much crisper team, that there's more focus on the execution. And I just have this feeling that this team is going to be sharper. I expect them to be sharper, especially in year two under the system, both offensively and defensively.
Well,
I'll tell you, there's definitely
nothing's going to be as crisp as the Osaka game in 2002. We're almost coming up on. I can't wait for the 30 for 30 on that one.
There's definitely no Club J, no Club Ron this year. I mean, he's having walkthroughs at 8:00 at night. He means business, and he's going to make sure this team is ready to go. So definitely no Club J anymore.
Yeah, and that military background almost ensures that you're going to have way stricter camps than they ever did under Gruden. George, I know you got a sportscast to go do, but let's get to the Nationals real quick. I mean, I know they're basically playing out the string, 50 games left in the season. What are we looking for out of them the rest of the way?
I don't even know. I mean, you'd like to see, obviously the new guys, some of the young guys that are giving a chance to play. I mean, you want to see them start to be consistent. You want to see, some of the young pitchers maybe give them a little more leash later in games, and where you wouldn't if you're playing for a playoff thing. You'd like to see Corbin, start pitching like his contract it should be. Joe Ross, Eric Fetty, guys like that finish the season strong. And granted, yes, the end of one season means absolutely nothing in spring training. I get that, but you'd like to see some sort of consistency down the stretch here. While they are mailing it in, you don't want to see them mail it in. I mean, and if I hear Davey Martinez say one more time, the boys are playing hard, fine. Okay. But, for me, that's what I would be looking for. See some of these young guys come around, put together a good couple of weeks strings here, and then to see what you get a better idea of what you have going into spring training.
And I mean, the guy I'm looking at is Josiah Gray. I mean, that guy, he looked really good in his second start through 10 strikeouts in 5 innings, played well enough for them to win. I know he didn't get credited with the win, but he played some winning baseball on the mound there. And I mean, it seems to me like he's already the ace of the rotation sooner rather than later, because I mean, who else would you even categorize as an ace at this point? And you want to develop him into an ace. So, I mean, like you said, I would like to see him get deeper into games. His 2 starts, he's only gone 5 innings. I'd like to see him dip into 6-7 innings, see if he still has his stuff later in games.
And that's the other thing too. You can put him in game situations where maybe necessarily you wouldn't if you're, 2 games out of first. You know what I mean? Like let's see how he handles certain situations. You can kind of treat it like a spring training per se.
Right. And plus the bullpen is not very good at all.
All right. I'll see you guys next week.
All right, George. How about you, Chris? What are you looking for from the Nationals the rest of the way?
Patrick Corbin needs to improve. For what he gets paid, he literally goes out every start and gets bombed. And I don't know what you do at this point. Do you just keep rolling him out as an innings eater the rest of this season? Yes, but next year maybe you do sort of look to fix his mechanics. Right now, it is not working. You want to see Juan Soto continuing to smile, having a good time, because not before long, we'll be talking about his free agency. And what's the question of him wanting to say, you know, I've always wanted to be a Yankee or something like that, and skipping town. So, you know, you want to see the nucleus of this team. You want to see improvements out of the young guys, these guys that they traded for. Whether they're here or they're still in the minor leagues, performing well, to have some optimism, because this division is not going to get any easier. I think they're kind of getting a light year with the Mets sort of starting to fall off a little bit here, but here comes Atlanta a little bit, Philadelphia too. And I think that's a down year for the division, but it will only get better. And you don't want to be in this purgatory like the Orioles are. You ever watch an Orioles game? And we, you know, it's still in the pandemic, but you can go to games now. No one's going to them. I mean, but we can finally go to baseball games and no one's going because they're so bad. And I don't think Washington gets to that point, but you just don't. You want this rebuild to take quick, I guess.
Yeah, and it kind of feels like for the next year and a half, 2 years, it feels like it's going to be them and the Marlins kind of jockeying to stay out of the division basement, because it feels like the Braves are competitive, so are the Mets. It just feels like it's going to be a long year and a half at least. What are you seeing, Dave?
I see guys playing for jobs over the next 50 games. This is the longest closing stretch this team has had since 2011, when they were a sub 500 club. Even though they finished under 500 last year, they were in contention for the first 48 or 50 games technically. And so they still had a shot to claim one of those wild cards. They wound up getting eliminated mid-September. So a 50 game stretch where, even though you're still in contention right now, you know you don't have the horses to make the ground up. You're going to see guys playing for jobs, playing for spots in the lineup. Carter Kieboom, can he be the everyday third baseman for this franchise moving forward? Is Luis Garcia is he a shortstop? Is he a second baseman? Or is he a Wilmer Depot that kind of plays a little of both and is primarily a defensive sub? You look at Andrew Stevenson and Victor Robles. Can either of those guys hit to justify their glove in center field? I think Robles has a much better glove in center field, but Stevenson has a little bit of a better bat, but neither, it's like you put both of them together and you've got one solid guy almost. It's like when Carlos Rogers and D'Angelo Hall split time at corner. One could make tackles, one could make interceptions. Unfortunately, only one could be on the field at a time. And I think you need to find out if Robles or Stevenson is going to be your everyday center fielder moving forward, because right now each is playing like a good fourth outfielder on a good team, but you need a keystone in there at center field. I think there's guys that are going to be pitching for spots in the rotation, whether it's Eric Fetty or Joe Ross. Both of those guys have been consistently uneven this season. Patrick Corbin hasn't been good, but he is in this rotation because of the contract. It would be very difficult for them, if they're not the Yankees or the Dodgers, to cut him loose or throw him into the bullpen, given how much money he makes. Jojo Gray or Josiah Gray, let's see what he can do. I think we're going to see guys audition for roles on the 2022 roster starting yesterday. And I think we're going to see that play out over the next 50 games. Yeah,
and actually to your points about the issues in the outfield. I mean, they moved Josh Bell to the outfield over the weekend and had and then started Ryan Zimmerman at first base. So, you know, they're trying hard to figure something out there in the outfield. And speaking of Ryan Zimmerman, the next game he plays, as of the taping of this show, We don't have the lineups yet, but assuming that Ryan Zimmerman plays, he will set a new franchise record for games played, 1,768 if he is in the lineup. So congratulations to him. The staying power. I mean, he's a part-time player at this point, and it sounds like he wants to be a part-time player, and it sounds like he embraces that role. It'll be interesting to see if this is, in fact, his swan song, because this is a rebuilding team. And for a guy at his age and just kind of where he is in his career, I don't know that it makes sense to have him along for the ride on a rebuild. Dave, we got some college football news today. Why don't we touch on that before we sign off?
Yes, the coaches poll, not to be confused with the Associated Press poll. I think that comes out next Monday. It's the USA Today coaches poll, released its top 25. Big shocker, Alabama is number one again. I think, no, it's not a misprint. Alabama is number one once again. Maryland and Navy both have a lot of optimism. I was at both media days over the last week. Both have questions concerning their quarterbacks. Can Taulia Tagovailoa build off of his first season as a starter? And that season was only 4 games. No Maryland quarterback has started every game of the season since 2014, and that was CJ Brown. So it doesn't happen often where the guy, whether it's injury, whether it's ineffectiveness, if Maryland's going to be successful, they need to have the right guy at quarterback. They also need to have an offensive line that can protect him. Navy's big question is Xavier Arlen, who started as a true freshman against Army last fall. That's something that you don't see often. Can he improve and take the helm, or do they wind up going with plan B at quarterback with the option offense? Both teams should be much better this year, but both teams have much more difficult schedules this season. Looking at Maryland's schedule, they play number 4 Ohio State, number 17 Indiana, number 18 Iowa, number 20 Penn State, West Virginia and Michigan both come to College Park, both received votes in the preseason poll. Navy only plays 2 ranked teams, gentlemen, but both are in the top 10 in the preseason. They go to Notre Dame, and Cincinnati comes to Annapolis in late October. Beyond that, though, you look at 7 other schools on Navy's schedule, from Marshall to Air Force to Houston, UCF, SMU, Tulsa, and Army. Each of those schools received some preseason honorable mention receiving votes. So each team could be better than last year, but each team might have, or they might be hard pressed to match their record percentage wise. But regardless, I'm excited. College football kicks off. We do have week 0 in a few weeks, but Labor Day weekend things get underway in Annapolis, in College Park, in Charlottesville, and in Blacksburg.
Yeah, and I feel like we all knew that it was going to be tough on Maryland as soon as they made that move to the Big Ten. And we knew it was going to be tough on them in football. Chris, did you have a parting thought?
Yeah, just to touch on Dave's point, took the words right out of my mouth with Navy's schedule. If you go through it, I just don't see where their wins come this year outside of against Temple late in the season. But every one of their games is tough. Even like East Carolina is an emerging program. So I'm going to talk about Virginia Tech real quick. Justin, is there a hotter seat than the one in Blacksburg? I'm not so sure. And I don't really know that Virginia Tech is going to be able to help him out. I mean, this is a team that used to be a powerhouse. I mean, not that long ago, I remember seeing they play the Metallica song and all the kids go nuts. I mean, it is a lukewarm program at the moment. And I think that they need to get some wins and maybe some upsets to save Fuente's job.
The only way, and I'm going to jump on what Chris has said, the only way that his seat could be hotter is if Shane Beamer would be coaching a winning program at William and Mary or Richmond or Towson, because that would be, to be like, oh, Frank's son is coaching and he's coaching really well, and he's at a job where he could eventually jump up to Virginia Tech. The son of Beamer is at South Carolina, so there's little chance he would go from Columbia to Blacksburg, but you never know. That would be a lateral move at best. But if he were at one of these FCS schools and doing really well, oh my goodness, it would be lightning hot in Blacksburg.
Yes. I mean, there's nothing worse than being at a program that's used to winning, that's not winning right now. All right, guys, we're going to break the huddle. This was fun as always. I'm Rob Woodfork at the wheel for Dave Johnson. Signing off for George Wallace, who's off doing sports and who knows what now, because it's not 45 anymore. Chris Cichon, Dave Preston, signing off. break the huddle, guys.